do you prefer talk about exact organization or about common background of this?
Well, I'm trying to make it as common as possible. I have found that the opposition to uh, internet auditing is usually by somebody who says things like, "Well, that's not standard," and I say, "Have you ever done any? Have you ever experienced any internet?" No, I haven't. But Ron didn't do that. Well, uh, Ron never talked about CDs either, or we were on teletypes for very many years because if Ron didn't say it, nobody was able to do it. The point is, here we are in the 21st century. We have lots of PCs who have, we have lots of PCs who desire auditing and cannot get to an auditor. I have people calling me every week from the other side of the US, and that's 3,000 miles away. That's not much distance compared to Russia, of course, practically next door, but that's like a day of flying and, many thousands of dollars worth of expense. And I use a virtual clarity meter. But I found that this also works using a C meter, where somebody else is using the C meter. And the method we use for the internet auditing is not the psychic auditing. I feel that there's probably people who do very well with that. They have the ability, but with internet auditing demands a little more of the auditor. And I think maybe that's where the resistance may come from some people. You have to have presence. You have to be there with the PC. You have to, the distance isn't important. It's, do you have the ARC with the person? Are you willing to listen? The person's telling you something, and it doesn't matter whether he's in the room with you, holding on to the other side of the desk, or is he at the other side of the world, wrestling with his demons in his own room, someplace. The difference is the auditor has to have total confidence that he can help the pre-clear. I can't imagine somebody doing this kind of auditing where he was a little doubtful whether auditing worked. You have to know that it works. You have to have absolute certainty that you can help somebody with communication alone. And if you can do that, if you have that certainty, you can audit people over a phone connection. And people have done it for years. I've done it, do an assist. Somebody would call in and they were very sick, and I would say, what do you see? Where is it? What's happening? We'll do a hello and okays. We do whatever. If the person is in session, that is, if he's willing to talk to the auditor and he's willing to discuss his case, you could probably audit him via teletype or via the email. And I know people who've done that too, who've said, what is your problem? The person would send an email back. If the auditor cares, if the presence is there to help the person, then the person can be helped. And obviously, the closer you are, the more ARC, the more affinity, the more reality. If I have you on a full screen, right now I have you on a little 3-inch by 4-inch image on my screen, but I see you, I see your expressions, I can tell when you get what I'm saying, and now I have you on full screen, and it's like you were just on the other side of my desk. And it's the feeling of rapport is there. And I think perhaps that's the big barrier for some auditors. If you don't have rapport for your PC, if you're afraid of the PC, if you're afraid of his bank, then you're not going to audit him in the same room. And you certainly aren't going to be able to audit him over the internet. And the only barrier I have found is that occasionally, as we've discussed, the internet has a certain amount of latency. That is, the delay varies. Sometimes it's very fast, and sometimes there may be up to a half-second delay, where I say something and it takes a while for it to get to you. in an assessment, if you're going down through a list, doing a rapid assessment, that could be a problem. But in a slow assessment, that isn't a problem. Most meters that we use over the internet have a trace, so you can see that the needle moved. It isn't a case of you have to have your eye on the needle, and it's nothing more disconcerting to have an auditor and he's got his eyes down here on the meter, and you get the feeling you're just sort of an accessory. He's talking to the meter. And yes.
Let me one point about assessment.
Yes.
You know that a good quality communication via Skype give about 30 frames per second.
Right.
This is give possibility to have assessment with good immediate settings or movement of needle.
Yes.
To have these settings.
Yes.
Exact in real time.
Okay, I question the barrier I see is it's not always real time. It could be a quarter of a second. But as soon as you set up a session and you do a few checks, you can tell, oh, this particular connection today, I do an assessment and I see it's a delay. There's a delay, but if you have a trace, that is, if you actually have not only the needle movement, but you have something that shows that the needle moved and where it moved and how long, you find that trace is very valuable, because even if the web, sometimes the web will have an interruption, like sometimes there'll be a half second where the web just stops. I've experienced that. But with the trace comes through without an interruption, you see, because the trace is captured at the sending end. So that when the interruption is over, you get the fact that here's the needle did move, you see it, and as an auditor you say, did you have a thought there? Did something occur when I asked that question? You can always query a needle movement. Let's say you have a little bit of a delay and you're not sure. Was it instant? Was it a little later? Well, you ask the PC. You consult the PC's understanding. In fact, you can consult the PC's understanding without a meter. You ask a question, PC flinches or something, and you say, is there something you'd like to share with me about that? And he goes, oh, well, ooh. And then you're off and he explains it, things like that. It's Maxim Lebedev. It's my wife. Anyway. How are you? Yes.
Okay, we now have a record of interview.
we can edit that little part out. That's good. So I was just trying to think if there was anything else. I think, as a matter of fact, there's been a very positive effect, because I would have never used, having many different meters, I would not have gone to the virtual clarity meter if I wasn't trying to audit over the internet. I need a computerized meter. And now that I've used one, the fact that you can record if necessary, I've done that at least once. Well, like, for instance, I did a Clear test. I did a video of the Clear test. I did a recording of the Clear test, and I sent it to the CS. So he has my session worksheets. He could tell for himself what the PC's indicators were. He and I have worked together many years, and this wasn't necessary, but I wanted, for our own integrity, I said, I really want to capture this for me. This was my first Clear test. I wanted to make sure that we covered everything. PC had fantastic gains. But so you have the potential for recording, if you wish, or for sending the whole thing to the CS and saying, I'm not sure what happened in this session, you see. And as long as the PC is all right on that, I mean, the church right now, the current church is recording and letting non-auditors and non-tech trained people look at the session. So anyway, any other questions for me?
Well, I must to ask about what is which levels you provide for people, like
Well, right now,
or what kind of
I,
auditing?
well, I'm an OT7. I'm a grad 5, so I have been trained to deliver every list, every one of the non-confidential lists, and it's just a simple matter of training up on the confidential list. There's no difference in them. I handle entities as a normal part of auditing. I mean, if a PC says, I have this thing in my space and it's doing this, we handle it. We don't go, no, you can't talk to me about that. That's OT material. PCs come in all sizes and shape. Some come in with so much awareness, they have a OT3 case that talks to them. And so I help them with that. We don't make a big deal.
Uh,